morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time you're watching this video. My name is the Flip Classroom expert, and in this first video in this course, you're going to be learning what the Flip Classroom methodology is all about and what differentiates it from the traditional classroom. So let's get started and let's get into it. Okay, so what you're going to be learning in this course include understanding the Flip Classroom methodology, the differences between the Flip Classroom and traditional classroom, and then Bloom taxonomy. Okay, so let's get started. Let's get into it immediately. So the flipped classroom methodology is an approach to teaching in which students engage with new materials individually at home in order to use classroom time to expand upon the topic under the guidance of the teacher. And we said it is based on Bloom taxonomy. So what the flipped classroom methodology is simply talking about is a method of teaching whereby teachers give students access to materials before they come to class. Okay, and when they come to class, teachers don't focus on giving knowledge or on giving knowledge to the student. You're teaching the student normally again, like how it has been done in the traditional classroom. The teacher instead focus on helping the students to have a deeper understanding of what they have learned from home and at home, and also how to apply the knowledge. Okay, so that's simply what the flipped classroom is. So what if in the flipped classroom we have two classes. So we have initially in all classroom, whether traditional or flip, we have two learning environments. And the first learning environment is the group learning environment, and we have the individual learning environment. Why I'm explaining this is to explain to you, to let you know what we mean by flip classroom. Because when you say flip classroom, we're saying something that we flip, we invert, we turn something upside down. So what are we turning upside down? Okay, so what we simply turning upside down is we're taking what we do in the group learning environment, we're taking it to the individual learning environment. And what we do in the individual learning environment, we're taking it to the group learning environment. Okay, so in traditional classroom, the group learning environment happens in the class and is in the classroom where students are taught together. And what happens in the group learning environment is that students sit down together, all of them sit down, and there's a teacher at the front that teach them. Okay, but in the individual learning environment, students are given classwork. Okay, they are given assignment to go and do at home. So the individual learning environment is the environment where the student learns or work on his or her own at home. And this is what we flip, this is what we turn upside down, because in the individual learning environment, in the flipped classroom, students don't work on assignments. What they actually do is to learn on their own, to watch materials, to watch videos, to read on their own. And then when they go to class, which is the group learning environment, they now practice what they have learned. And the reason for this is that we have realized that for some level of students, they can actually read on their own. They can acquire knowledge on their own. What they may not be able to do is to understand that knowledge that they have acquired or be able to do something with it. Okay, but unfortunately, in the traditional classroom, we really focus our time on students acquiring this knowledge that we don't even have enough time to help them understand. And sometimes we have the time to understand, they don't really have the time to apply what they're learning. Okay, so the flipped classroom now make it easier for students to actually acquire knowledge on their own and then come to class where they have the students, they have the teacher's guidance and peer support to help them practice and take action or apply what they have learned at home. So that's simply what the flipped classroom methodology is all about. And again, it is based on the Bloom taxonomy. So the Bloom taxonomy is like an hierarchy of learning capacity. It talks about the 6 stages of learning. I'm still going to talk about that in the subsequent slide in the video. Okay, but for now, I hope you understand what the flipped classroom methodology means. That it's involved. That's the simplest, to explain in the simplest term. It involves students getting access to materials before they come to class. And then the class time is used to engage students, to make the classroom interactive and to expand more upon the topic so that students can have a deeper understanding of what they have learned at home and be able to apply it. So I hope that is clear enough. Now, differences between the traditional classroom and the flipped classroom. One, the first one is sage on the stage, sage on the side, versus it's supposed to be sage on the stage and guide on the side. Sage on the stage and guide on the side. And what that simply means is that in the traditional classroom, teachers act like a sage on the stage. And what does a sage on the stage means? A sage means a wise person, someone that is knowledgeable. And when you say a sage on the stage, just like a picture, what comes to your mind is a picture of a speaker speaking to like thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. Speaker at the podium speaking to other people. So at that particular instant, the speaker seems to be the all-knowing, to be the only one that knows everything about the subject matter, with other people just passively receiving the information. And this is what happened in the traditional classroom. A teacher stands in front of the classroom, and then the students sit down passively and just listen, just take in the information the teacher is teaching them. But in the flipped classroom, on the other hand, teacher acts like as guide on the side. And what this simply means is that they don't just teach. They don't just like act like a sage on the stage. But what they actually do is that they guide the students. So instead of just being in the front of the classroom and just teach them, they guide them, they help them. So in the flipped classroom, teachers they don't really teach. What they do is they facilitate knowledge, they facilitate discussion, they facilitate things that bring about learning. And how does this happen to be? Because in most cases, in the flipped classroom, students will have been given access to the materials, before they come to class. So they already have a basic knowledge, a basic understanding of what they're going to be learning in the classroom. And when they get to the classroom, what they are simply doing is they are trying to practice what they have learned already. And the work of the teacher at this particular time is now to take them through, to guide them, to guide them to see where they're making mistakes, to see what else they need to know, or what they're getting wrong. So that's what the teachers do in the flip classroom. The second difference is acquisition of knowledge versus application of knowledge. So in the traditional classroom, more focus is given to acquisition of knowledge. And this is not teacher's fault, it's just the time. Because most of the time, the time allocated for each period is not enough for teachers to actually cover what they need to teach. So students are only able to acquire knowledge without any opportunity to apply what they are learning. But in the flipped classroom, importance are given to both, because both are very, very important. There's nothing good. It's not good enough for you to know something, that means to acquire knowledge and not be able to apply it. And guess what? You cannot also apply what you have not acquired. So both are very important. The only thing we do is that we try to, in the flipped classroom, we split our class into two, so that students can be able to acquire knowledge as much as they can, and they can also be given the opportunity to apply the knowledge. So students acquire the knowledge at home, by reading the materials, by watching the video. When they come to class, teachers guide them. This is why we call them guide on the side, on how to apply the knowledge. And then the second one, the third difference is education of the past versus education of the future. What we realize is that things are changing very fast. And the aim of education in the 21st century is completely different from the aim of education in the 19th and 28th century. But guess what? The traditional system of education that we are currently running in Nigeria, Africa, and most parts of the world was created to fulfill the need, or to fulfill the aim of education in the 19th and 21st century, and this is during the industrial age, where what we need is labor. And then what do we do? We simply need some people to be shown how to operate some machines. So we show multiple of people at the same time how to operate some machines, and they go there to go and start operating it. But in this particular world, in this century, in this age, we need students that can think, not just acquire knowledge alone, but not just by what they know, but by what they can do with what they know. So in the 21st century, the aim of education is to at least help students or children to develop four skills. We call them the 4 21st century skills. We have communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. And all these things are what students have the opportunity to develop at a very early stage when we implement the flipped classroom. So that's why it is geared towards the future. It is geared toward preparing, not just preparing, adequately preparing students for the future of work, for the demand of the future of work. While the traditional system of education is actually focused on preparing students for a past that we can never be in again. Alright? Another difference between the flipped classroom and the traditional classroom is that passive learning. So in the flipped classroom, students are active. They learn actively. They don't just sit down passively to learn. They learn. They work together with their teacher. As I said, teachers don't actually teach. Okay, they actually facilitate knowledge. So they guide students in learning and being part of their own learning process. But in the traditional classroom, on the other hand, students learn passively. They are just like container receiving content. They don't actually contribute actively like that in the learning, teaching and learning process. Okay, another difference is equality and equity. Okay, and I'm very sure we have had equality before. We know what equality means. Equality is when you give people the same opportunity, when you are equal, you are fair, you are just, and all that. But equity, which is not as popular as equality, is they also communicate the same thing. The only difference is that equality is saying that we give people the same opportunity. Equity, on the other hand, is saying that we give people opportunity based on their need. I don't know, you might have seen a picture where we have 3 boys, and one is very tall, one is tall, a bit tall, and the other is very short. And then equality is when you give, and they need to watch, let's say, a football match. They are at the other end of a stadium, and they need to watch a particular football match. Equality is when you give all of them the same height, the same stool. You give them the stool of the same height, even though they are taller than each other. So equality is you give them the same opportunity. Equity is when you realize that, okay, this particular tall guy does not need any stool to actually see what's at the other side of the fence. This one that is a bit tall just need 1 stool, while the one that is very short need 2 stools. So that is equity. Okay, and how does this apply to teaching and learning? We realize, and by now as a teacher you should know already, that your students don't learn at the same pace. Your students don't learn at the same time. Your students are very different. But the problem is, in the traditional classroom, we teach students from different backgrounds with different prior knowledge, many things unique about them. We teach them the same thing at the same time. But in the flipped classroom, we bring the concept of equity, where students actually have their own autonomy, where they have control over how they learn and when they learn. Okay, for example, now some students learn best in the morning or in the night. Okay, so when you give them videos to watch, they can decide, okay, this is the time I'm ready to learn. But in traditional classroom, the only thing we follow is timetable. When it's ready to teach, we just call them, okay, you're having mathematics now. Whether the students are ready to learn, whether they're not ready to learn, just teach them. And one thing we must understand as teachers is that there's a difference between teaching and learning. Teaching is what teachers do. Learning is what learners do. And the product of teaching is learning. So if learning has not taken place, then your teaching can be considered futile, can be considered useless. Okay, but fortunately, most of the time, what we do is we teach and teach and teach, but students don't actually learn. For them to learn and for we to see the product of our teaching, then we need to consider their own readiness. We need to consider their own unique capabilities and abilities. And when we start considering these unique individual differences, then we start employing the concept of what? Equity over what? Equality. We need it in our education industry. And that's one of the another thing that differentiates the flipped classroom and the traditional classroom. Now let's move on to Bloom taxonomy before we get to the end of this video. Okay, so Bloom taxonomy talk about the hierarchy of learning. Okay, when it comes to cognitive development, and there are 6 stages to learning. We have the remembering, the understanding, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So this 1 year, this is a normal Bloom taxonomy. While this one is the inverted Bloom taxonomy. This one here is the pyramid form of the Bloom taxonomy. So what does it mean? I'm going to explain this one by one. So the normal Bloom taxonomy is saying that the first thing students need to learn is what? It's talking about how students learn. And this normal Bloom taxonomy is talking about how students actually learn in the traditional classroom. So the first step is to remember. Yes, students must know something. They must be able to remember something. They must be able to recall something. Okay, and to also mention this, all these are actually in the verb form. So they have their own noun form. So in noun form, instead of just remember, you're going to say something like knowledge. Understanding, you're going to say something like comprehension. Apply, you see something like application, analysis, evaluation, and creating. Okay, so remembering means that students must be able to remember something they have learned. So the first stage of learning is remembering, and that's for students to see something, to read something, and be able to recall it. Okay, and the second stage is understanding. There are many things that we know that we don't really understand. So the second stage is what? Understanding. The third stage is applying. This is when students can apply. They don't just know and understand, but they can actually apply what they learn. Analysis is when students can break things down. They can say, why is this? Why is this? They already know, they understand it, they can apply it. But then this is where they start questioning the validity. They start saying, why is this? Why is this? Why is 1 plus 1 equals to 2? That's analysis. Evaluation is after you have been able to analyze that, okay, this is why this thing is this. Evaluation is asking, what's the next? Is this the only way? Evaluation is asking if this is actually the perfect way, if this is the great way, if this is the best way to do these things. So you've been able to analyze the something, you have known why this is this. Evaluation is trying to see, can we get a better version of this? Okay, now creating is the last step. That is when, after you have been able to evaluate something, you now bring out something new and better from your analysis and evaluation. So that's simply the simple explanation for all the 6 steps. Okay, now when it now comes to teaching in the traditional classroom, most of the time our focus is always on what? Remembering and understanding. We don't even have the time to focus on application. And to also mention this, all these 6 stages of learning are categorized into 2. We have the lower order thinking skill and we have the higher order thinking skill. The lower order thinking skills are the stages of learning that does not require much thinking, and that is the remembering, the understanding, and the applying. The higher order thinking skills are the ones that require students to think critically, and those are the analysis, evaluation, and the creating. Now the problem with this is that with this normal group taxonomy is that more time is focused on remembering, understanding, and applying, which are the lower order thinking skills. And the most important, both are very, very important, because without the lower order thinking skill, you cannot have the higher order thinking skill. All the other higher order thinking skill build upon the lower order thinking skill. But the problem with our education system is that most of the time we stop at this lower order thinking skills. And that's why most of our students, we realize that our students don't really know how to think. They don't think. That's why we don't invent, we don't innovate so much in Africa, because we only focus on application of knowledge. We stop at application of knowledge. We don't analyze, we don't evaluate, not talk of what? Creating. Now, the inverted group taxonomy is now saying that, okay, because if you check this, you see that it's a form of a pyramid, and the higher the width of each of the stage determines the number of time or the amount of time devoted or focused or used on each in the classroom. So you see that in the first one, remembering has the highest width. Okay, that means most of the time is focused on remembering. That's just acquisition of knowledge, and then understanding, and then applying. And the one that has the lowest time, lowest width here is the creating. Okay, but the inverted Bloom taxonomy, we spend a very less time, very small time on remembering, understanding, applying, and we spend most of the time on analysis, evaluation, and creating. But then when implementing the flipped classroom, we realize that these two cannot work. The normal Bloom taxonomy does not give us what we want, and the inverted Bloom taxonomy also will not give us what we want. So the one that will give us what we want is the one in the pyramid form. Okay, this is now categorized into 3: what students do before they come to school, what they do in school, and what they do after school. So what they do in school, what they do before they come to school is that they have access to materials. So by having access to the materials, they acquire the information that they need to acquire. And the acquisition of information deals with majorly 2 things: remembering and understanding. So when they have been able to acquire this information at home, so they can recall the information, that's remembering, and then they also have some level of understanding. What the teachers now do for them in school is to show them or guide them on how to apply this knowledge that they have acquired, and also analyze it. That's why in the flipped classroom we encourage discussion, we encourage debate, where you ask students why. We deal most with why is this. Why is this? Okay, and then after that, in the so after the teachers have guided students on applying and analyzing the knowledge that they have acquired, so they can now go further on their own to evaluate and then to create a new thing from what they are learning. So that's simply what the Bloom taxonomy is all about, especially when we are relating it with the flip classroom. So I hope you gain value from this. Thank you so much, and let's talk about reflection questions. Excuse me. So, excuse me. So now that you know what the flip classroom methodology is all about, so what stood out for you in the flip classroom methodology? What stood out for you about the flip classroom methodology? What stood out for you? What was that thing that you learned about the flip classroom methodology today that feel like, wow, this is amazing, this is fantastic? And also, from what you have learned from this video, do you think implementing flipped classroom methodology will make a difference in our education system? So I would like to hear from you. Please drop your answer in the comment section. And if you have any idea or thoughts about this, you can actually send me a message and I will gladly respond to you. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video where we're going to talk about the benefits and the pillars of implementing the flipped classroom. Thank you.